Welcome to Our Africa, the show that aims to educate and sensitize all Africans on tolerance and the restoration of the spirit of Ubuntu back to our continent. I'm your host, Matapelo Moloi, and together we begin the journey of healing Africa to restore love and peace back to this beautiful continent and to say no to xenophobia. While leaving his country of origin in hopes of creating a better future for himself, Emmanuel Sithole lost his life in these streets of Alexandra Township in Johannesburg just over 10 years ago over a personal possession, just a cigarette that is worth a few cents. Well, his friend Salvador Goss takes us through the painful journey of losing his friend during the xenophobic attacks in South Africa in this area. Let's take a listen.
Is not humanitarian. We are not. We work so hard for South Africa to be independent. We are now being treated like dogs.
When other people think about xenophobic attacks and displacement of thousands of foreigners, one man, Salvador Goss, recounts the murder of his fellow Mozambican national Emmanuel Sithole is not a case of xenophobia but plain criminality, as the fact that his killers stole neither his cell phone nor cash, stemming from the tensions in Alexandra in Johannesburg following days of xenophobic violence in various parts of South Africa.
Salvador Goss.
My name is Salvador Goss. I'm from Mozambique. I've been here since 1991 to hustle for my children.
2015.
In 2015, we were met with Sithole's tragic news when he got killed for a mere cigarette. Upon his death, as community members, we then informed the Mozambican embassy for help, which they then arranged with both the South African and Mozambican governments for Sithole to be taken to his home soil in Manica for burial.
Mozambique in South Africa zikwazi ukumhambisa lo mfana kubo le eManica. Mina vele kufikeni kwami la.
As for me, I've been living on and providing for my family as a Baba since I didn't get a job back then due to identity challenges. But Sithole's memories will never fade away. I never knew that one could easily be killed and brutally so for their own possessions.
Mina kahle la kule strata lesinhlala kuso. Angikaze ngihlangane nento embi ngoba bayangazi bonke.
Ever since I arrived here, I've never experienced anything as bad, and I've since made friends with a lot of people around the area. It's just then Sithole's death has shocked me to the core, just for cigarettes and airtime, which he didn't even have enough stock then.
Kanti yena bengastopanga. Uyastoka ukuthathengisa zokwazi ukusiza ingane zakhe kanye nomfazi wakhe.
My wish is for us as black people of this continent to work in unity. Back home, life is tough and I only came here to fend for my family, and I never cause problems. I take care of my family back home through the barbershop, and I've managed to put my children through school, and as we speak, some are in grade 12 already. In 1996, we were issued with temporary IDs, but mine was snatched away when I got mugged one evening on my way home. When I went back to the Home Affairs, they demanded to see the temporary ID they issued to me earlier, and it was no more, and that deprived me of the right to be the South African citizen. My plea to the government is that if they could extend our stay here with more days on our passports, since we are allowed a 30-day stay, which is renewable after those days. So, one has to go to the border after the 30 days period to renew their passports, and that is killing us with transport money. At least if they could extend it to 3 more months instead of this 30 days period. It's even better to go to the Home Affairs even if we had to pay a certain amount just for us to make a living for our families.
Siya eHome Affairs ufika lapho noma bangathi siyabhadala ukuthi uthenga amalanga yokuhlala ngapha sizokwazi ukusebenzela ingane zethu zingalambe yeah bese sizojabula impela nangabe government isiza ngalokho.
In the light of the recent xenophobic attacks across South Africa, some may say this country has earned itself a reputation regarding their standards of hospitality towards foreign nationals living in this country. Or to get a further in-depth discussion on xenophobia, take a look at this discussion I had with my panel. Hello and welcome back to Our Africa. In this episode, we take a closer look at the recent xenophobic attacks on all foreign nationals living in South Africa, to seek a vision of a society that is caring based on human principles. We will be having a discussion with the industry role players on a certain matter to get their observations on the life of foreign nationals living in South Africa. Well, do remember that we love to hear from you, so if you're watching from home, you're most welcome to engage with us on social media by sending out your message or opinions on our topic of discussion on social media, on Twitter and on Facebook. Our handle is @OurAfrica, and also you can stream live wherever you are in the world at www.817.com. But for now, to dive straight into our discussion, I am joined to unpack further details on this by Mr. Mark Bafu, the chairman of the African Diaspora, together with Sharon Ekambaram, the Lawyers for Human Rights, together with Sarah Morta, the Foundation for Human Rights. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your time and presence right here on Our Africa. Well, just to get the ball rolling, let us start off by getting your reactions and observations to the recent xenophobic attacks on all foreign nationals. Okay, just to get your reactions on that, Mr. Mark Bafu, I'll start off with you.
Look, we only talk about the xenophobic attacks whenever there is an outbreak. But what we realized since 2008 is that we have a recurrent attacks on foreign nationals living in South Africa. Look, you cannot cut down the attacks on migrants when you listen to what authorities, government officials are saying out there. It's like we are entertaining the xenophobic attacks on migrants. Some politicians are even going out to use it for their political gain. So you definitely have a situation where people know that whenever they cannot deliver to their communities, to their constituencies, they go around and blame the migrant community. So yes, there is this stereotype. People are using the name Nigerians. But are we talking about the so many Nigerians, medical doctors in this country? Are we talking about the so many Nigerians who are lecturers in our universities here? Are we talking about the engineers who are Nigerians who are living here in South Africa? We don't talk about that. We will go out there and look for the only one Nigerian who unfortunately goes out and commit crime and use him as all Nigerians are looking bad. So that's what we're talking, we calling xenophobic.
And now just to interject over there, you know, the reason behind these xenophobic attacks is a question left on everybody's, you know, faces and creates a huge question mark all over. What do you think the main reason of these attacks stem out from? Do you think that this is misdirected anger from South Africans right here towards the government? What do you make of this, Sarah?
Thank you, and the viewers at home. Quite often it's easy to look at a vulnerable person as a scapegoat for your own problems. Issues of unemployment, service delivery are not a problem of migrants. Mark has mentioned the role that migrants, including Nigerians, play in promoting a positive economic environment in skills that are lacking and are scarce in South Africa. In 1998, we saw the need of integrating through policy migrants, people who are fleeing persecution from their own countries, fleeing hardships, to be part of our society. And we didn't put them into camps. We advocated for local integration so that the people can make ends meet within the economic environment. And the information we have clearly demonstrates that migrants, refugees contribute positively. They in fact also create jobs and employ other South Africans who might have been unemployed for a long time. So the issue of saying migrants, refugees are a threat to the socio-economic situation of South Africa, it's quite often false.
Now, Sharon, do you also agree with what Sarah is actually saying, that there seems to be some sort of narrative portrayed by our leaders, portrayed by our communities, portrayed by our media, of painting all foreign nationals living in South Africa as totally bad news? Do you think that we're actually dimming the light on the good that is brought by foreign nationals living in South Africa?
Matapelo, I think it's not only in South Africa, and I think that's what's really sad, is we're seeing this trend internationally with the rise of Trump in America, with what's happening in Europe, with migrants fleeing from North Africa, that migrants and people on the move are used as scapegoats for inability to deal with socioeconomic issues in the different countries. So I totally agree with her, and I think that one thing that we have to do is to debunk these myths about that all migrants are criminals and that they're bringing drugs into our country. And I think that that's a lot of the work that organizations like ADF and others are doing to educate South Africans about the real value, the amount of jobs that are being created, the amount of trade in Gauteng, in Limpopo, with the cross-border circular migration. People are trading and contributing positively to the economies of these provinces.
Well, despite the gruesome attacks on some foreign nationals living in South Africa, this is a feel-good story. Helen invited us over to her hair salon to have a quick chat with her. Take a listen.
My name is Helen Obe. I'm from Nigeria, precisely. I came to South Africa since 2012. I'm a stylist by profession. The challenges I'm having in South Africa is the xenophobic attack, which happens last year, this year also. So it was so terrible. And back home, my people, they were seeing it in television. They thought that everybody in South Africa is dead. But I just call them that nothing happened to us. We are safe and sound. So I'm happy to be in South Africa today. But another challenge that I'm having is because of paper. They are not giving us paper, we foreigners. I don't know why. When you go to Home Affairs, they say that they are not going to give us paper. When you go to asylum, we that are seeking for asylum, they say that we are not permitted to get the asylum again. So I don't know where, and that deporting so many people home. So I don't know why they are deporting people home. Yeah, so many people are tired of being in South Africa, but I thank God. Anywhere I am is my home. That's what I have in my mind, that anywhere I am is my home. I like South Africa. I like people in South Africa. I like them. I love them. I love Africa. Africa is #1.
Well, Helen's confessed love for South Africa, despite the challenges she's faced, is very heartwarming and indeed brings unity, or rather hopes of unity for all who live in South Africa. Well, another story not so different from that of Helen is that of Ntari Awudo, who left his country of origin in 2009 for South Africa in hopes of better opportunities. Actually, we have a chat with him. Let's take a look.
My name is Ntari Awudo. I'm coming from Cameroon. I've been in South Africa since 2009. Here in South Africa is very good to live. You can do whatever you like to do. And business here is very good because people from all around the world used to come to South Africa. I think living in South Africa for me is a better choice because in Cameroon there's no opportunity like here in South Africa. I feel good when I'm in South Africa.
Ntari Awudo's story definitely brings hope for many other Africans who wish to relocate to South Africa in hopes of better opportunities. And for now, our panel of guests further unpacks their ideal solutions towards putting an end to this phenomena called xenophobia. Also, just to get more on the challenges that foreign nationals actually experience in South Africa. You know, earlier on, Sharon and I just spoke on the processes, or rather the challenges of undocumented migrants living in South Africa. Just talk us through, Mark, with regards to some of the challenges that migrants face to live in South Africa, to make a living in South Africa, and to bring their families for the betterment of their futures. Just talk us through that.
One thing that we all have to look at very closely is the documentation. And that's why a few weeks ago, the campaign that the African Diaspora Forum want to run is to lobby government to say, why don't we document all illegal people in the country? Government will then have a database of people who are living here. What are they able to do? How are they going to contribute positively to the economy of the country? Government will be able also to plan for the public services, because the reality is that you cannot ignore your visitors. You have to acknowledge that they're living in the country. And when you are planning for public services, you aid them. Otherwise, the frustration might be that you build an hospital for maybe 5,000 people, and you end up having 7,000 people using the hospital. It's a frustration. People going there, people can be shouting at each other, and that can be turned to xenophobic attacks. And also, government doesn't have a clear idea of migrants who are here who can contribute positively to the economy of the country. So we are saying if government give an amnesty to all illegal people, government will be able to know who are these migrants, what are they able to do, and how they can contribute.
Well, Mark's point then drives us to the point of the support which is given to foreign nationals living in South Africa. Now, Sharon, do you feel that foreign nationals living in South Africa are indeed getting enough support from the government?
This question of the numbers is critical in planning, as he's demonstrated, but to clarify a point that in our country, we are also having a lot of internal migration. So Gauteng is seen as a place of gold, a place where you're going to get a job. So people come from all over the country, but the provinces don't take that movement into account. So when they build a hospital, they build it according to the stats of the people living in Gauteng and not taking into account. So that point goes beyond just foreign nationals from the neighboring countries. But to answer your question then, I think there's two problems in providing support. Number one is that access to the refugee reception offices is often a massive challenge because of corruption. You've got to have money to pay a bribe to be able to get your documents, and in that way many people remain undocumented. So we need to solve that problem. And if you, the related problem then is that you're having an unquantified number of foreign nationals in our different provinces, and if we don't have them on record, how do we ensure that we can support them? And so there's very little support. There are NGOs that are doing a lot of work. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees provides some form of funding, but it's nowhere near adequate. And so when there is xenophobic attacks, which are covered by the media, and where property is destroyed, where people are displaced, there still remains no proper contingency plan to be able to say, okay, you had to force and flee and run away from your accommodation, so we're going to make sure that this is where you can stay temporarily until that situation is resolved. And we're currently working with the South African Human Rights Commission and with the Protection Working Group of the United Nations to set up some kind of contingency plans.
But Sarah, I can tell that you're actually nodding your head towards what Sharon is actually saying. Perhaps do you want to add a few more?
It has triggered the question, and who makes people undocumented? If at this time you have 3 refugee reception offices that have been closed, and all the closures were found unconstitutional because they impeded on the right to movement, on the right to freedom of association, and the right to live in dignity and choose wherever you want to live. In fact, something that is not often said is that the Constitution does give all the rights to refugees and asylum seekers and migrants, except the right to vote. So if you say people have been undocumented or they are undocumented, who makes the people undocumented?
So I'm starting to also get the sense that South Africa has to do some introspection with regards to moving forward and ways to deal with these xenophobic attacks, because they do seem really to be becoming a recurrent problem. How do we move on forward with regards to bringing long-term solutions to bringing an end to xenophobia? I'll start off with you, Mark, and get the both of your closing remarks on that.
When you have a person like this lady who tweeted on social media about blacks are like monkeys. The first 2 or 3 weeks, we saw the matter landed on the table of Parliament. Everyone wanted to take a decisive approach and draft a policy or a law about the matter of racism. It's very funny that in the case of xenophobia, where people are losing their life, no one talked about this, and each time is a debate. What do we call it? Afrophobia, xenophobia, and the matter is
so what you're saying, Mark, is that laws need to be changed to be in favor of foreign nationals living in South Africa. And Sarah, just your remarks?
The National Task Team on LGBTI person has been a success case. So if we have a dedicated task team that focuses on monitoring, xenophobic attacks and make sure that the perpetrators get, prosecuted, then we will know where we're going. And then secondly, the continued dialogue.
Sharon, just your closing remarks with regards to the solutions moving forward on this matter.
I can't agree more. I think we need intolerance with xenophobic attitudes and behavior. Politicians need to be held accountable for statements that incite violence, and we need to consider what kind of society do you want to build from being very democratic.
Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you for your time and presence right here on our show. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Our Africa. We do hope that it did bring a glimpse of hope to restore peace and dignity back to the African continent and put xenophobia to a complete end. Well, a big thank you to all my guests for joining us and unpacking our topic of discussion, and a big thank you to all our viewers for staying with us and engaging with us throughout the show. Well, for myself, Matapelo Moloi, and the rest of the team, thank you so much for staying with us. Till we meet again next week, stay blessed.